Hello, Ditch Diggers listeners. Thank you for checking out our podcast. I want to apologize in advance. I was having severe trouble with my microphone. I did not know what was wrong. Still not sure, but I've changed some stuff around, hopefully. The next episode will be better, but I have to say this episode, my audio is going in and out, and I've done everything I can to fix it, but it is still noticeable, and I'm sorry. It is Season 9, Episode 1 of The Ditch Diggers.
Appear and ain't no wannabes here with some not so nice advice for your writing career. To be clear, no punches will be pulled, but the punch may be spiked how they like before they get on the mic. To my left we got the mighty Mer Lafferty, and if I piss her off, believe me, she'll come after me. And her co-host Matt Evan Wallace on the right. Yes, she may be half as hype as she can take him in a fight. So settle in, folks, buckle in and boot up. Time to meddle in a way to make your writer shut up. It's hard work, but the perk is that it's fun and exciting. Facebook will still be there when you're done writing. Ditch Diggers! Ditch Diggers!
Coming to you live from the Sustainable Legume. Where do legumes grow?
Fields. We'll say fields.
Sustainable Legume Fields behind the Ditch Diggers Manor. It is the Ditch Diggers with Mer Lafferty and Matt Wallace here to tell you about business and writing or any kind of pursuit. What are you laughing at me for now?
No, I forgot that's what we were here to do. I thought we were here to talk about the Incredible Hulk, but if you're listening to this, you weren't here for that part. You weren't here for the 40 minutes where I talked about the Incredible Hulk. Oh God, we lost Mer's audio again.
I didn't do anything.
Oh, sorry.
I did not touch a thing.
No, it's not you. We're fine. I'm sorry. I'm watching the Twitch stream. I'm watching the Twitch stream, and I forgot temporarily that I can't hear you in the Twitch stream. I'm listening to you on Zoom. So your mouth started moving, but no sound was coming out.
Right.
And because of the trauma of the last 40 minutes, my head just went, oh my God, we're muted again.
For those of you listening later, we've had a couple of hiccups on this recording attempt. But we're back and we're here, and I apologize for whatever the audio is doing, but I'm not going to fiddle with it anymore because Matt has a day job and I have an appointment, so we got to get moving on this thing. What you been up to, dude? It's been forever.
It has been forever. It's a new year. It's a new season of our Hugo Award-winning podcast. I'll throw that out at the drop of a hat. I don't need a reason. Yeah, man, a lot. In summary, we're not going to go into too many details of these things. We talked about this before, and we will go into the later date, and it's not the subject of the show. But the first of the year, I kicked off 2023 by parting ways with my agent, which was a big deal. You know, it's always
that's a tough decision to make.
It is. It's always a big deal when you part ways with your agent. And although it will be announced by the time the podcast comes out. It has not been announced right now, but I will say, for our audience, again, without going into too much details, I do have a new agent. So,
woo! Can I say I told you so?
You can say I told you so, because you did tell me so. You told me so multiple times.
I told you you'd have no problem, that you're an amazing writer, and you got this. No problem. And
it was no problem at all. It was very easy. No, I mean, it wasn't easy, but it was a process, and it's, you know, but everybody was very responsive. It was nice kind of realizing I'm not the unknown quantity I was 7 or 8 years ago or whatever it was when I signed with my last agent, and
God, was
that was very
long?
To the end of 2015, I believe. So, a small piece of time there, but point is, a lot was accomplished in that time and gave me the tools I needed to move forward. So that is largely what I spent the beginning of my year doing, was making that transition and finding a new person to, champion my career. And now we're moving forward. And as to the details, again, they will be announced soon. Actually, I think I'm doing it right after the show. Now that
you got yourself a champion, so you're going gladiatorial on me.
I mean, it's a gladiatorial industry, Mark.
I'm so excited.
We're all lone warriors out there, and we need all the support we can get. So, how about you, Mer? How's 2023 treating you?
Fairly good. I got, I did a big edit of my novel that I turned in right before the new year. And then I got comments back at near the end of January, and the comments were great. It was, I love the new stuff you've put in. I got a couple of questions. Of course, it took me longer than I thought it would. It always does. But it's like there were several small changes to make. So nothing really gave me a big headache, but it took like several more hours than I thought it would. But besides that, I did knock it out in a day. Probably shouldn't have done that. But anyway, and it has been accepted. So Chaos Terminal has been turned in officially before the deadline. So I'm hoping that it's on production now, but hopefully we'll be able to announce a release date too. And I'm hoping it's going to be the end of the year.
That's fantastic, dude.
Yeah, and February's been a weird month. I don't know if it's the light thing or what, but my mood and my energy have not been good. And I'm like, doing all the things you're supposed to do, like exercising and all that shit. And it's getting, I'm trying to figure out what's going on just because everything's just kind of blah. But of course, that just could be just depression. I have it, and sometimes it hits. But I started a new novella 3 times, and today I just made myself continuing to go with it. Even though I think every word is garbage, I did get 1,700 words today. So my new novella has started, and I'm questioning everything. It's awful, but I'm gonna keep going.
No, that's a perfect start. It's a classic start, really, I feel like. No, dude, that's the essence of what we do here. And that's the essence of being a professional, I think, is writing through that feeling of this is garbage and I hate everything and it's terrible, you know? Because I don't trust a writer who doesn't feel that way at some point in their process, honestly. I'm like, you weird freak. Are you an alien? What's wrong with you? Yeah, that's just part of the gig, man. But I think what separates the pros from people still figuring it out is you persevere and you finish the thing. You get the words down on the page and you have something to work with, and you use your knowledge of the craft to shape it into what you need it to be. That's what we do.
Yep.
Have you tried bringing a long sleeve teamer?
No, it's beautiful outside. I had a birthday lunch with some friends the other day, and we went to Indian, and they brought out samosas, so I got a picture of them and sent them to Matt and asked if he thought they would be serving any s'mores at this restaurant, because Matt and I are terrible office nerds.
Indeed.
So, and
like 50% of our friendship is based on quoting The Office back and forth to each other.
Yes. And yes, the audio has been mentioned. I tried to futz with it. It was a very bad idea to futz with it during the live stream. So I don't know what to do right now. I apologize.
Really, the highlight was when you kind of just started yanking cords out of things and holding them up like fresh kills.
Yep.
That was my favorite part.
Yep.
It didn't work, but you took decisive action, and I respect that.
That's what I've been trying to do. I'm looking at Vinny's website right now, and he's got 6 reasons why my mic might not be working for me.
So, well, thank God for Vinny and his listicles. What will we do without Vinny?
I know. I'm
making lists for us.
I'm looking to see what Vinny has to say. My USB port might be dirty. Anyway, okay, so we're here to talk about business. There's been a lot of stuff going on in publishing. There always is, really. But
there's never not.
We wanted to talk. Well, you came up with the topic, Matt. You start us off.
I did, but I do like the way you named it. I like ethical actions in publishing, because you say we're going to talk about ethics. That sounds boring as whale vomit. So, but it's not. It's really, Mer and I, we were talking about just it can be hard to navigate the publishing landscape these days with a clear conscience. Honestly, that's really what it comes down to, because we've got a huge labor movement going on. We've got strikes every other day. It seems like some older, and I hate to pigeonhole the elderly. It's not necessarily about that. It's not always an elder either, but some author we all respected or looked up to, goes full fascist white supremacist on us, and we have to deal with that. And it's just there's a lot of stuff happening that makes you kind of go, how do I react to this? And while being able to look at myself in the mirror in the morning and go, I'm doing the best I can to advance my career and be a good person at the same time, is really what it kind of came down to. So we
fully support the people who are striking. I mean, we believe people need to be paid a living wage, and also if we got happy, healthy people on the other end of our books are going to be better. It just makes sense. So even if you're just a cold, hard capitalist asshole, you could still be on their side because happier people make better books.
No, I'm hardcore supporter of the support staff at publishers, and they deserve to be paid all the money in the world because they make it happen. And obviously in this specific, and the thing is, this isn't specifically about the HarperCollins strike. This was kind of the catalyst for the conversation. They've reached a tentative agreement, which is great. I hope they're getting everything they asked for, because what they asked for was stupidly reasonable, and there was no reason they should have been on strike 2 months to get it. And HarperCollins management are fucking assholes, but that's neither here nor there. That strike is settled, so doing an episode about how to support that specific strike seems kind of redundant at this point. But it's really more about, like, and as I was saying to Murray, I doubt this is the last one of these we're going to see, because the publishing industry is a vast, complex, and largely unfair landscape. So we wanted to kind of talk about, as authors, how do you, and a lot of people have been confused about this too. You see a lot of confusion on Twitter about what are the things you can do to support strikes and support labor while still trying to maintain this thing you call a career, because those two things can seem to be in a counterbalance. Is it like, and it was tough for me too in this particular instance. Like my middle grade publisher is Catherine Teigen, which is a HarperCollins imprint.
Right.
So I very much wanted to make sure that I was able to conduct the business I need to conduct to the best of my abilities, because I want my books to sell, but also be a supporter of the strike in every way I could, and help them however I could. And a lot of people were like, are we not supposed to buy HarperCollins books? Are we, like, if I have a book, is it bad to promote the book? Like, there was a lot of confusion going on about that. And really, the simplest thing you can do is just listen to the organizers. That's really what it comes down to. That's the guideline I use. It's like, I'm going to support this movement the best I can, and I will do what the organizers behind this thing are asking me to do. And the HarperCollins, everybody the union that organized the strike, were very open and upfront and very informative about what they were asking people to do and not to do. They made graphics. They were all over social media. HPC Union on Twitter. I just followed that. And if you just listen to the organizers, they'll tell you what to do. And nobody was asking anyone with a book with HarperCollins not to promote your book or try to sell your book. They also weren't advising anyone. They literally had graphics about this. We're not asking anyone to boycott HarperCollins books. They were actually encouraging people to buy HarperCollins books from indie publishers. Mm-hmm. That was their big thing with that. But they specifically said, we love authors. We want their books to sell. So absolutely, go out there and promote your books, and please, everyone, go buy books from indie publishers. What they asked people to do, and they were very clear about it, was just, while the strike is going on, agents and authors, please hold off on submitting any new works to HarperCollins while we're on strike. They asked freelancers, if you're a freelancer, please don't do any freelance work for HarperCollins or their imprints while we're on strike, because that's scabbing, crossing the picket line. And they were asking reviewers, please hold off on reviewing HarperCollins titles while we're on strike. Those were the big things they were asking from people, which I felt was very reasonable. The last one, I think, could trip people up a little bit, because you're saying, all right, we still want to support authors. We don't want anybody to review anything. And I get that seems a little counterintuitive, but like, we're all trying to figure this shit out. They need to accomplish their goals. They still want us to accomplish our goals, but there's got to be some compromise in between. So I personally found that to be completely fair on the organizers' part, and very easy to follow, Yeah. And then in addition to that, they asked for support by donating money and food to the strike line, and writing letters and emails to management, and signing the open letters they put out. It was all very easy stuff, and there were all kinds of ways you could contribute that took, didn't take a lot of time and a lot of effort. So it was a very well-run strike and a very well-run campaign. You just kind of had to listen to the organizers and follow along. That's all.
Yeah. It's hard to know what to do, because the thing about boycotts and strikes are, if something's big enough to do enough harm to where people feel it needs to be boycotted, they're going to have the decisions made at the top by people who already have a big bucket of money. They just want bigger buckets of money. And to deny them their bigger bucket of money, you have to take people who are just you and me trying to work a job and support a family and not making any of these terrible decisions, and would actually benefit in the long run from the boycott, but not in the short run, because they're the ones you're actually hurting. And so that is what makes these things so confusing. And I don't know if I've ever heard, maybe I just don't pay it close enough attention, I'll admit it, but I haven't heard a lot of people giving such clear guidance to the public at large as the HarperCollins strike organizers did.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Completely agree. It was a very good model for how something like that should be run, in my opinion. Yeah. It was very thoughtful. It took everything into consideration and came up with the best compromises and the best guidelines that it could with, so many, because you got so many things in conflict, man. Like, it was really tough to be a HarperCollins author watching this going on and having books to promote and, trying to support the strike at the same time. You did feel kind of put in the middle of it, but it was such a necessary thing that was happening. I wanted to support it in any way I could. And it was just, it was like, and I was at the point in the process with my publisher where we had finished the last book I had under contract, and it was the point where I would have pitched them the next thing. Because I was on a 1-book contract with them, but I now had the window to let's try to sell them another book, because you've got an editor there, you've got the thing in place, and it's the easiest sell you're going to make. And I had to tell myself, all right, well, that's just not an option right now. I gotta wait until they get this thing settled, and it's not an easy thing to do. It goes against all your freelancer author instincts, because it's so hard. It's so hard to make deals and sell books. And here you've got a friendly agent and a friendly publisher who have bought 3 of your books already and are completely open to you just hitting them up and going, hey, what about this thing? And then, if they like it, they'll give you a bunch of money, and you've got to go, no, that's okay. I'm not going to do that right now. It's tough, but it's necessary. And I again, I can look at myself in the mirror and go, all right, I did what I could per the organizers' guidelines to support this thing. And, I can at least live with myself, even if it might have cost me a little bit of money in the interim. It's what you got to do, Mer. It's what you got to do. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm glad that's fixed, but it's good to keep in mind for the future, because publishing on the assistant level, it's really bad. It's bad all over. It's terrible. Yeah. I know somebody who worked on several Hugo Award nominated books as an assistant to a big editor, and then when she asked for a promotion, they're just like, yeah, you haven't done enough important books. And she's like, just here, and she left. Yeah, they're right here. It's ridiculous. Yeah, it's ridiculous. The structural systemic stuff is so fucked, and that's why I wanted to talk about this, because while the HarperCollins, they've reached an agreement, I sincerely doubt this is going to be the last time we see this, because it's not like this was the only problem with the publisher and now it's fixed. Yeah. This is still a deeply broken industry. It's still horribly centralized in a terribly expensive place that they don't pay enough people to live in. It's still a horribly gate-kept thing that needs incredible strides to be made in the diversity department. There's all kinds of shit wrong with it, and there's going to be more. There's going to be more of a reaction to it, more strikes and more labor movements, and you need to know how to navigate that shit. So we just thought it was important to talk about using the HarperCollins strike as a model, because again, it was a very well-run strike with very reasonable guidelines. And when in this kind of situation comes up, even if it's not a full-blown, taking it to the street strike, I think these are good things to remember moving forward ways you can support these kind of movements and these kind of things that, you know, don't cost too much or take too much of your time. There are things you can do to help, and how you can ethically navigate them. So those are ethical actions you can take, Mer. See, I brought it all the way back.
I see, you did. It was nice book ending there. Yeah, there's news from the HWA too. We're a long time author just kind of did, as my old agent Jen says, did a racist, and then doubled down and got on this long podcast and did more racist stuff, and has now been banned from the HWA, had his Lifetime Achievement Award taken away, and kicked out of, or banned from several conventions. And I'm just trying to figure out, are just some, is it the pandemic? I mean, I know people, there's been racisms around all over the place.
Right.
But it's like, there seems to be some sort of switch that's flipped lately, where someone who's completely rational will suddenly think it's okay. Not, you don't know what's going on inside somebody's head, but it's like, most people know you shouldn't say it out loud.
Right.
And they just go ahead and do that, and then get upset when the snowflakes go, you know what? Maybe you shouldn't be racist. And if you are, maybe you should do it behind your own door so we don't have to see all the shit that you're smearing around on the walls. And I don't know what
you would think. You would think common sense would dictate. I just think it's time, or I don't. You know, I think time is the catalyst. In this particular case, and it was Tom Monteleone. Like, there's no reason not to say he's not fucking Voldemort. We can say his name.
I didn't know how to pronounce his last name, and I don't know the author very well. So
that, as an aside, is very interesting, because like it's the Horror Writers Association, and Tom Monteleone is an editor and a horror writer that goes back decades. And it's interesting how compartmentalized genres get to me, because it was very strange to me that so many people from like science fiction and fantasy have no idea who he is, or really anything that goes on in the horror community. I always forget that things are so segmented, because I started out more in horror, and I don't write a lot anymore for some reason. Maybe I'm just too happy these days, Mer. That's a joke. But yeah, so I was very aware of it. It was really kind of personal for me when this whole thing happened, because Tom Monteleone, under Pope, his Borderland anthologies were groundbreaking. They were. Tom Monteleone and his wife Elizabeth, they edited a series of horror anthologies called Borderlands that I was like a huge fan of 20 years ago when they were coming out. I was living in New York and just starting to submit short stories, and like the Borderlands anthologies were like my gold standard, because they kind of did what the Ellison anthology, whatever the hell it was called back in the day, Dangerous Visions. It was kind of like that. It was stuff that you didn't see in a lot of the more mainstream. It was more like left of center of mainstream horror, just really groundbreaking writers and really great writers. And Tom Monteleone, I submitted a Borderlands so many times trying to get in, and Tom Monteleone wrote me the first personal rejection letters I ever got as an author. And they were incredibly encouraging to me. Like, they meant a lot to me. It kept me going when I was just collecting my, literally hundreds of rejection letters as a terrible, newbie writing teen. And I still have them. And they're like they've always been very treasured personal objects to me in my writing career. So that's the perception of Tom Monteleone I always had ingrained in my head. And then all of a sudden, you sign into Twitter 20 years later, and it's like Tom Monteleone has gone full fascist, and he's saying trans people are evil and are from the devil, and he's going on like really trite screeds about how they as a singular pronoun is ruining the English language, and just all this horrible shit. And you're like, God damn, really, Tom? It can't be that tough. I literally DM'd someone I followed, and I'm like, is it this Tom Monteleone? Is there another? I did. No. Yeah, and I know how ridiculous that is, but like that's how deep it hit me, because that's how contrary to my perception of the man it was. Like, and that's the truth, I didn't want it to be him. I didn't want those memories that I had And that perception I had to be corrupted, because then it reflected on how he'd made me feel about myself. Like, if that guy felt this way about me, maybe I'm an asshole too. You know, you start having all these really complicated feelings when things like this come up. And, you know, and then, you know, you start to dig in and you find out he's always kind of been a dick. I was watching a stream with Brian Keene and Christopher Golden where they talked a lot about this, because they both know the guy really well and have known him for years. And Christopher had terrible stories of how Tom had treated him over the years and how he treated other people. And then I see, like, Chuck Wendig is a very good friend of both of ours, and I've known Chuck for years. And then Chuck tweets that he had a similar yet completely different experience than mine. Tom had written him a personal rejection letter early on and had basically told him to quit writing. And he said it really fucked him up and, like, was one of the worst letters he ever got, Chuck did. And that, like, blew my mind too. It was like, Jesus, but he was encouraging to me, you know, and that's a lesson in and of itself, man. And that's something that always happens with abusers or people like this, or just when people are exposed. You've always got a lot of people who try to defend them by saying, but he was always really nice to me. You know, I never saw him be mean to anybody or be fascist or be racist or whatever. And that's also a good example of why that is no defense at all. It's just, that's how people like that are. They know they somehow preternaturally know who to be cool to and who not to be cool. Although with Chuck, he kind of fucked up a little bit because Chuck's fucking huge now.
Yeah.
But so that's one lesson right there. And that's something, but again, thankfully that's something I've learned. And that sort of mirrors what I think goes on with people like Tom Monteleone. It's like, me, when I'm faced with that situation, I could have internalized it and dug my heels in and said, no, I refuse to believe that about my Tom Monteleone. All of you people must be wrong. Like, that's a choice I could have made. Thankfully, I've been around enough and experienced enough to go, my perception was false. This is the reality of it. This is what all these people have experienced and are saying about him. I need to accept that and deal with my own shit and just go, you know, this was important to me. It was important to me. It was positive to me. But he's an incredibly negative influence that's making all of his other people feel terrible. And what happened to him deserved to happen. And, you got to do that. Whereas Tom, I think, reached a point in his life, not knowing him personally, but I think he reached in his life where he kind of felt like the culture's passing me by a little bit. People are forgetting that I wrote all these books and did all these things. And you get frustrated, you get angry, and, you know.
And who can I blame?
And who can I blame? And that's what it comes down to. And so I think, he started off the way a lot of people start off, the way the Rollings and all these other people start off. Small increments, a little rant on Twitter that was bad, but it wasn't anywhere near where he ended up. And people started pushing back on that. They're like, hey, man, like, I think you need to take a look at yourself and maybe who you're projecting onto. And when they're confronted like that, that's when they make the choice. They say, hey, I can examine myself and my anger and where I'm directing it and ask myself, maybe I'm misdirecting it, maybe I'm mad about this other stuff, or I can run straight into the embrace of the worst people on the internet who will tell me, no, you're right, and everyone else is wrong. And unfortunately, Tom, like many before him, hit that fork and he took the hard right into the hard right. And he went on a full white supremacist podcast and just said every horrible thing that he could possibly think about everyone who wasn't a cis, straight, able-bodied white man. And as a result, he's been kicked out of the HWA and had his Lifetime Achievement Award taken away. And fuck him, he deserves it, But yeah. It's tough, man. So I understand the process. It's just sad to watch so many people fail at it over and over again because it's such a predictable thing. It's the same. Again, it's the same thing with like Rolling. It's the same thing with the Father Ted guy whose name escapes me. It starts off just feeling a little alienated and feeling a little left behind. And instead of examining that, they seek out the worst ideologies and elements who will just reassure them that, no, you're awesome and everyone else is wrong and to blame. It's just, it's really fucking sad. But you got to be able to let go, though, as the person who was the fan, the person who admired them, as the person who they may have meant something to. You got to be able to detach from that. Because the worst thing you can do is become like them, Graham Linehan, I've never been clear how to say that. So polluted so many great British comedies with his fucked upper. Yes, he did. Fuck that guy.
Yeah. Preemie says, the impression I got from Twitter afterwards was if you didn't have a white-sounding name, you got much less nice personal rejections.
From Tom, I'm sure that's absolutely the truth.
Yeah.
And, I'm a Matt Wallace, and I'm sure he was like, all right, you're one of mine. I'll take care of you, kid. But,
yeah.
But yeah, and if I have not been totally clear, fuck Tom Monteleone. He's dead to me.
I think you were pretty clear, but that could be because I know you, so
Just
probably
making
good that
that
you
clear.
said it. Yeah, it's hard to discover. I mean, sorry, I'm realizing the path I'm going down is not quite right.
That's good. That's self-reflection.
Yeah,
self-awareness.
yeah.
That's something the Tom Monteleones of the world have abandoned. So I applaud you for exercising that.
Yeah,
So Lineham is the name. Graham Lineham.
I will say this. A lot of times meeting your heroes is tough. And it's because, I mean, the bigger and more wealthy and more powerful you get, the more people seem to buy into the fact almost that this is God-given and or my own hard work 100% given, which makes me better than everybody else. And if they don't see me, if everybody else doesn't see me as awesome as I think I am, then fuck them. And they can really start to believe that.
Oh yeah. Entitlement has a huge amount to do with it. And as you're saying that, I think a big part of it too is just, when you, and this is just the absolute fucking truth. It's like the Tom Monteleones of the world in their day had the industry to themselves for a very long time.
Yeah.
It was the land of the straight, able-bodied white man. It just was overwhelmingly. And I mean, still is by the numbers to a huge extent, but, it shifts a few percent on them and they feel like the rug's being pulled out from beneath their feet and they're plummeting, to depths hitherto unknown because they had it to themselves for so long.
Yeah. Completely
arbitrarily and for no reason. It had nothing to do with meritocracy. It's just, publishing wouldn't let anybody else in. So it's just, from Tom's perspective, those were the golden days. Those were the golden years. And now they're being ruined by all these people coming up who don't look like him. And so he'd rather go, well, they're only getting let in because they look the way they do, even though they were kept out for so many years because they look the way they do. It makes no fucking sense.
Yeah.
But I think that's a huge part of it. And it feeds into that entitlement you're talking about. And, he must have had 30, 40 years. He's been around a long time. 30, 40 years of that kind of entitlement just ingrained in his head, being reinforced by the industry and by his readership and by everybody. And, when that level of grandeur gets challenged, it gets really fucking ugly. But, yeah, man. And again, we're talking about this again. So it's not just specifically about Tom Monteleone, even though it just had that personal connection to me, but because he's not the first and he's not going to be the last, sadly. And, eventually it's going to be, even if it hasn't been yet, it's going to be somebody that means something to you, and you're going to have to figure out how to deal with that when it happens. And so we just wanted to share that. Myrna, I want to talk about it. I want to share that experience, and hopefully maybe that helps you a little bit when you find yourself at that unfortunate crossroads of I looked up to this person, they inspired me, they may have even helped me, but they're now exposing themselves to, not be a friend of the community on one level or another. It's a difficult thing, man. And it sucks, but like I said on Twitter, I'd always rather know than not know. You know?
Yeah.
Someone was talking about how this kind of thing has sort of ruined social media for them. And I get that, but there was also kind of a tone of almost blaming social media for it. Or at least that was my interpretation. And that bothered me because, listen, man, there's a lot of toxic shit with social media, and I'm not saying it's not. And I don't blame anybody for getting burnt out on it or not wanting to deal with it or needing to step back from it. That's completely understandable. But I also, and I think I even said it's like, social media doesn't make these people become anything. It just gives a voice to the people that have survived them. And on that score, you can't blame social media for it. And again, I'd always rather know than not know. So I'm grateful for social media breaking those things in that aspect. Because, if Tom wasn't on Facebook, we probably never would have known the darkness harbored within there. And again, as an active member and an elder in the HWA and as a lifetime achievement member, you have a lot of power, you have a lot of stroke, you have a lot of influence, you have a platform and a voice. And if that's how he's going to fucking use that, and if he's going to make everybody in that organization rightfully feel unsafe, then he needs to be checked. And I'm glad that he was outed. So
yeah. Real quick, in the chat, we don't really track it on Ditch Diggers, but on I Should Be Writing, we track rejections. And Urban Bohemian, hi Herb, welcome, glad to see you're here, was asking why HS Valley said there was a new rejection, and we were going yay, is because rejections suck. They really do. We're not trying to deny that, but they also mean you're a working writer, and rejections are gonna happen. Whether you're new or well established, they're gonna happen. So what we try to say is you're doing the job of a professional writer, and there are lots of people out there who are not ready or don't feel ready or are just too scared to submit. And so when you get your rejection, you're telling people like, no, I have the courage to do that, and I can, as the Drinky song says, I can get knocked down and get back up again. And it's fun to be able to cheer something. So we track the rejections on my other podcast and cheer for them because they happen to everybody, and it's
absolutely
good to just remember that it's part of the job. And so you're doing the job, and that's a good thing.
Absolutely, man. I literally, like I said, I have every single one. I have every rejection I've ever collected. I think I have somewhere between 300 and 400 of them in my files. It was six or 7 years before I sold, a $10 short story to an e-zine in like 2005 or whatever. And it's the gig, man. And hey, if you can do a lot better than that, if you only get a few, or if you get none, or if you sell the first thing you ever put out there, it's rare, but it does happen. More power to you. But
yeah,
it's part of the journey, and it's putting yourself out there, man. A lot of people underestimate that. It's hard to put yourself out there like that, to be judged openly, because that's what's going to happen. You're going to submit a story, and they're going to judge it, worthy or not worthy by their standards. And we must always remember, it's just a person reading your thing, and it's their personal taste. It's not necessarily a reflection on you or your quality or whatever. They may have just had a bad lunch that day, for all we know. But you are going to be judged, and you need to be ready for that. And it's amazing thing that you put yourself out there, and you took that hit, and you're going to move on and keep going. So absolutely, always celebrate your rejections.
Yes, indeed. Were there any other ethics stuff we wanted to talk about?
I mean, it's a really broad topic.
Yeah.
Those were kind of, I'm just saying, I don't really...
We've covered everything. We've covered all the ethics. Now go on and live an ethical life, everyone.
Exactly. We're done. There's nothing more to be said about ethics. No, there's a lot more to be said, but those were the specific things that had kind of been bubbling in my head lately, and I felt like they were all kind of related to, like I said at the beginning of the show, just sort of how to navigate this whole landscape and feel okay about yourself at the end of the day, Yeah. And I mean, part of the Tom Monteleone thing, we didn't really get into this aspect of it, but sometimes people like that, it can also be a thing of, I know this person, they may be in a position to help my career, I don't want to go against them kind of thing. That's that's another thing you have to deal with. That and like I said, I guess I didn't get into this case because it's not that, I don't know Tom Monteleone personally. He's just a guy who wrote me a letter 20 years ago that, meant something to me. But that's also part of this. And that's when it gets really sticky. When it's a friend, when it's someone you know really well, when it's someone you're involved with in a business capacity, that's when you're really kind of put to the test. And I think that's when it becomes the most important to kind of look inside and use all the tools and have all the realizations that we talked about a while ago, because, when you go against that for your own personal interests, for me, that's when I wouldn't be able to look at myself in the mirror anymore. And there are plenty of people who make that choice, who, are like, no, I'll continue to be in business with this person because it serves my interests and it'd be too hard to detach from them. And even if it's not a business thing, it can be a personal thing. It can be like, they're my friend and I refuse to believe this about them. And again, that gets into how it reflects on you. And, I think a lot of that comes from not wanting to internalize, if I've been friends with that person, what does it say about me kind of thing. And those I think are the hardest decisions to make.
Well, yeah, but like you said, a lot of people like this know who they can be honest with, and they know who they think it's okay to shit on.
Yeah.
There was some, there have been guys who've done, grooming or sexual harassment in the industry, but they don't do it to all the women.
No,
they do it to newcomers. They do it to people they see as innocent and hungry. And so when they get caught out, they have a whole bunch of women friends going, I've never seen activity like this. So clearly this is untrue. But, you know, it totally is true, because these kinds of people know exactly who to target. And you got to understand that if you're one of those people who just have never seen this kind of activity, that just means you didn't see it. That doesn't mean it wasn't there.
Yeah, and don't allow them to make you complicit or an accomplice because they were smart enough or just had good enough instincts to plant those seeds early on that, to enable them to go fuck with other people.
Yeah.
That's how I looked at it, because flat out, I've been in that situation. There was the period there where, like, Mike Cole was getting outed and Sam Sykes was getting outed, even though both of them seemed to be fucking doing fine. Paul Kruger was one of those guys. His age is simply to mine. He was a friend, and I was really friendly with him, liked him a lot, and I had to make that choice. It's like, am I going to believe the women who are talking about it, or I'm going to be like, no, not my friend Paul? And I chose to believe the people that had survived him, and it was a difficult choice to make. And sometimes I still have a twinge of feeling shitty about it, like I turned on him or something. But like at the end of the day, it comes down to, who are you going to believe, and the kind of person you want to be, and what do you want to do? And, that was a hard time, but I don't regret it. I think I did the right thing, and I think I sided with the right people who needed the support, and that's all you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the other side of it, and that's when it really does get sticky, and that's when you really got to remember this stuff and not let yourself do what the Tom Monteleones of the world do, which is decide everyone else is wrong and you're right, and take that right in the court.
I do want to bring up one quick thing. This is an inside baseball term I think it's mainly science fiction or genre in general. Or maybe writers in general. I actually don't know how deep inside baseball it gets, but there's a term called a missing stair. And the missing stair is, this guy shows up, you're at a convention, the guy shows up at a party, and somebody comes up to you and says, yeah, he's had a few, don't go near him. He does the Asimov thing of grabbing butts, or he'll try to get you in a corner and kiss you, or something, and you're thinking, and you let him in? And it's like, no, everybody knows, you don't go over there or avoid him or whatever. Right. That's called the missing stair, where everyone's like, okay, if you walk down these steps, you're going to want to skip one of them or else you'll fall. And that is, so apparently there's a lot of whisper networks about people like this. But the thing is, if you're new to the genre or you're new to writing, you're not going to hear it. Mm-hmm. And so, there are a lot of people have remained missing stairs instead of being called out because of fear of professional retribution. But if you hear the word someone is a missing stair, that's what that means.
Yeah, no, and I hadn't, even being in the genre, because it's not something I have to fucking worry about walking around, I hadn't heard the term missing stairs or heard about whisper networks until literally just a few years ago, which is kind of, made me feel like I was not doing my job. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is terrible. So, even if you're not, I guess the point I'm making is, even if you're not new to the scene or to the industry or the community, if you have the right kind of privilege, you don't necessarily know about these things because you've never had to know about them. You kind of have to make the effort to get informed and to get involved and to help where you can, man, and use that privilege and use this to the best of your ability to out these fucking people and make sure that they don't prey on your community.
Yeah. Indeed.
So.
Well, Matt, I think we both need to be wrapping up now. Matt and I have a new schedule. We're going to be every other week. We're going to be meeting between ourselves on Fridays, every other Friday, to talk about the next Monday's stream. So we're going to be planning and shit.
Hey, we're more prepared. See, I did research for this. Mm-hmm. I had all the HarperCollins Union stuff in front of me for reference. I think everything went much after the 40 minutes where we couldn't podcast. After that, I think things went very smoothly. I'm not in any way placing blame. I'm just the irony of we met Friday to like prepare for the show and make sure we're really prepped, and then this
And I
whole
was trying to
was
make the audio get better, and I killed it entirely.
There's a metaphor in there somewhere, Mer. We're not going to dissect it now.
Anyway, and in 2 weeks, I believe we will have Mary Robinette Kowal on the show, and we're going to be talking about something I've been wanting to talk to people about for years and years and years, which is I call it like new writer. I call it professional writer 201, which is after you've made some sales, shit people don't tell you about.
Nice.
And Mary Robinette's had some blog posts along that line, so I've been excited to have her on the show to talk about that kind of thing. So she'll be on in 2 weeks.
Fantastic. Can't wait for that.
Yeah. So, Matt, you want to tell us where to find you online?
Yeah, I'm still clinging to the dying days of Twitter at Matt F. Wallace. I'm on Mastodon too, but I don't remember what the thing is, and I'm not really posting there. But I'm still on Twitter because it's all I know. It's very sad. The whole thing is very sad and codependent. But you can also find me on Instagram at the same handle. I'm trying to post there more, and matt-wallace.com is my website. Got a bunch of books coming out this year, concluding the Savage Rebellion trilogy in June with Savage Crowns. Go pre-order that if you can, and catch up on the first two books, Savage Legion and Savage Bounty, if you haven't done that yet. And then we just announced my next middle grade book, Nowhere Special. That's coming out in October. Really excited about that. I think it's the best middle grade book I've written so far. I'm really proud of it. So.
That's very exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. So I don't know if that's up for pre-order yet, but I just thought I'd put the bug in your ear now. So got a lot of things going on this year. Got a new agent. Again, I'm going to announce that soon. So stay tuned, folks. Stick with me. I'm doing stuff. Yeah. What about you, Murray? You've got things.
I've got things. I'm doing stuff. I'm currently I'm writing something I'm not contracted for, which is exciting. And Chaos Terminal will be out in several months. So that's not on the schedule yet, but I'm looking forward to it. I think it's a good book. I'm happy with it. But yeah, if you want to follow me and my podcasts and my books and the magazine that I co-edit with The Kids Are Asleep, Escape Pod, you can go to merverse.com. That's where you find all the stuff about Mer. I have a very Googleable name. It's Mer with one R. And I stream on Twitch Mondays at 2, Tuesdays, Thursdays at 3, and this is all Eastern Standard Time. I might be doing a Thursday night gaming stream, but Baseball came out, had 2 seasons, and then went on hiatus again, so I'm not sure if that's going to keep going, so we'll see. Thank you, everybody in the chat, especially for your patience while I screwed up all the audio. I'll see if I can fix something along the lines. We'll see. But, and thank you, Matt. It's good to have you back.
It's good to be back, Bert.
This podcast was produced under Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives License. Music provided by Devo Spice, devospice.com.
Ditch Diggers!
This is a free podcast brought to you by the kindness of our patrons. If you would like to also be kind and a patron, go to patreon.com/mightymur.